Happy Friday, friends! We've got a props from the past for you, coming all the way from the year 2013. I decided to chime in about 3D printing. I don't know if you've heard about this new technology that everyone's using in 2013 called 3D printing. Now, what's amazing is back then, it wasn't nearly as prevalent now. In fact, if you've got into 3D or prop making in the last couple of years, you probably wouldn't even be aware that back in 2013, some people thought that 3D printing was cheating. I'm sure there are still plenty of people that think that too. And I guess I just wanted to kind of cover that and talk about what was possible with 3D printing and how it fit into being a prop maker. What's crazy is, at this point, I had never done any 3D printing myself. We did get some stuff ordered and printed through Shapeways. In fact, we'll show one of those off. But I didn't own a 3D printer at this point. I had never printed anything myself. I did try to print something at some point on my brother-in-law's Lulzbot, but my 3D model was a mess. It had voids in it, and it didn't work at all. So that's my full experience with 3D printing before I decided to let everyone on the internet know what my opinion was. So let's dive in. This will be really fun to see how what I thought about the technology way back when. Oh, it's the Phantom. The Phantom in Mass Effect 3 sneaks up and kills you all the time with his sword, so that's why I was so frightened. Oh. Prop culture. What a great name for a show. We actually watched the Disney prop culture show, the real one that just came out. Last night we watched the Pirates of the Caribbean episode of Prop Culture and it was amazing. But anyway, for a while that's what I called the videos on my YouTube channel. Hello and welcome to Prop Culture, your look into the world of replica prop and costume making. I'm your host, Bill Duran, and today we're going to talk about 3D printing. Look how clean my shop is. Just wanted to point that out. Spotless. 3D printing has gotten huge in the last year or two. With things like MakerBot and other companies springing up building 3D printers. So what I mean by like companies like MakerBot, they started pushing those first consumer grade FDM printers. And it's amazing to think how in 2013 I was like, wow, 3D printing is really big now. Right. People come to me a lot asking me about 3D printers. I think there's this sort of idea that 3D printing will eliminate the need for the prop maker. Like maybe somehow people will just go to the machine and say print replica gun and it'll just poop out a replica gun. Still doesn't work that way, does it? We all still do a lot of sanding, don't we? Although, I'll get into the more resin-based printers in a little bit, because that has changed a lot and that's only happened in the last couple of years. That's not to say that won't happen, but that is not the current state of 3D printers. So starting off, I don't have a lot of experience with 3D printing. However, I do actually have a degree in 3D computer art. I went to school for computer art and I use programs like Maya and 3D Studio Max, and I have a whole bunch of experience doing a lot of 3D modeling. There's so many applications out there. One of our colleges had Bryce. I don't know if you guys remember that old school 3D modeling program. I actually got my start doing AutoCAD work, like 2D drawing, and then worked up to mechanical desktop. I did a lot of CAD stuff in high school, a lot of mechanical 2D drawing and even some 3D stuff. But when we got to college, the focus was like 3D modeling, texturing, rigging, and animation. That's mostly what we did. For our college work. Mostly, we wanted to make animations, not necessarily video games, and we certainly weren't even thinking about 3D modeling stuff for 3D printing in 2001. We were thinking about animation, but those skills transfer really well. That experience translates really, really well to 3D printing. For example, my wife, who I met in college, also has a lot of experience with 3D modeling. And she did her own model for this Phantom helmet from Mass Effect 3. And then she had it printed at Shapeways. A couple things about it. First off, it's awesome. And also, my wife made this. How cool is that? Hi, honey. I have a really cool wife, but you guys know that. This was their strong flexible nylon, I think they call it. I think you can get it in different colors now, but we just got it in white. And it's, as the name would suggest, strong and flexible. So we used the raw print. We didn't mold and cast it because it was really durable. And it was really thin, like 2 millimeters thin, I think, the wall thickness on that. The nylon, while very durable, is a super pain to sand. Because it's flexible, like, it gets like fuzzy, it's weird. So I remember Britt had to do a lot of filling. Probably spot putty and probably a lot of filler primer. But it did eventually work. That's not the case with most 3D printers you're going to have at home. Most people don't have a laser sintering 3D printer for nylon. You're probably going to have an FDM printer. You can also print in nylon on an FDM printer, which I've done, but I wouldn't recommend using that for like a prop that needs to be sanded smooth. I would recommend using nylon for something that needs to be durable, which I've done before. I use that for some of the mechanical parts on our Probius build. But anyway, I think they still print in this nylon. I'm not sure, I haven't got anything printed from them in a while. Just know that it is very, very durable, but a super pain in the butt to sand. Second of all, there are a lot of caveats when it comes to modern 3D printing. A lot of finishing work had to go into this, including filling and priming and sanding and doing like a filler primer and then sanding some more. Lots of filling and priming and sanding. Which we all know that dance, right? Very familiar with it, especially if you've been printing a lot of stuff in FDM lately, or in the last few years, which I have. We know the sanding dance. But you do end up with a really good final product. It's perfectly symmetrical, and it fits perfectly because you could size it before it was built. And the time involved was much smaller than, let's say, sculpting it from scratch. Something else to point out too is that neither Brittany nor I have a lot of experience with traditional sculpting, but we have tons of experience with 3D modeling sculpting. This was all polygon modeling, so it's like a mesh with vertices and faces and edges that you move around. That's mostly how you do stuff in like Maya or Blender or 3D Studio Max. But we have tons of experience doing that. For a while, about a year and a half, the two of us both worked on a movie project that never went anywhere. But what that got us was a ton of repetition. Lots of little small projects we worked on for this movie that we could crank out in a week or two, get feedback on, and then move on to the next thing. So it was a really great period in our lives where we got a lot of that 3D modeling repetition in, along with good feedback from other artists who are better than us. More skilled anyway. There are a couple of downsides, however. It is prohibitively expensive. To build one of these would push you well into the hundreds of dollars just for the print, not counting the vacuum forming necessary for the visor, the lighting, the painting, and the many, many man hours that go into it. I wonder how much the price of printing has come down at Shapeways. So I want to say that helmet cost something like $300 to print at the time in 2013. If memory serves right, it was about $300. I wonder how much something like that would cost now if the prices come down. But also, isn't it amazing that for that $300 instead you could go buy a CR10, like an FDM printer, to print your own helmet that would look probably just as good? It's like 7 years later, that's now the state of things. Instead of spending money on that print, we could have got a whole printer and a ton of filament. That's just how the world has changed. This is kind of enlightening to watch. I recently put together a kit from Eric Jarman at Jarman Props of a Psycho mask, and he had the mouthpiece 3D printed. So I had some practice priming and sanding and filling that. And Shapeways does a really, really good job with their 3D printing, but I still had to do a lot to sort of remove that stair-stepping effect you get. Could have taken a better photo there, Bill. But you can see the artifacts left over from the layers when it was printed. I kind of wish I'd got a shot that showed what it looked like when it was sanded, because when you start to sand it, it gets a little bit fuzzy. So this thing probably needed to be filled a bunch more before I finished it. From layered 3D printing. So basically, 3D printing is great for what it has always been used for, which is rapid prototyping. You can mock something up and have it printed and then have a fully formed piece that's the right shape in a pretty small amount of time. Super quick on that. I think that's actually changing. So you prototype something, let's say this helmet. I 3D print it, sand it, whatever, and I want to make more of it. So I make a mold, and then the castings are what I sell or whatever. I've started seeing professional prop shops and production places all around finishing 3D prints. Like if they only need one of a thing, they'll 3D print it, or if they only need like two of a thing, 3D print it, sand it, paint it, send it out the door. Like, it's getting really good, especially the FDM stuff for bigger things. I've seen people sending like really super high-end professional stuff that gets chromed is just the raw 3D print that got sanded and smoothed really, really well. So people are starting to figure out ways to get a lot of bang for their buck out of those 3D printers. But still, the case is still that if you need to make many, like if you want to make 50 helmets, you should print the one, sand it, finish it, make a mold, and then cast 50 of them. You don't want to be sanding 50 3D prints. However, if you need, let's say, 50 of those things, it still makes a lot more sense to mold it and cast it than to just have 50 of them 3D printed. It's almost like this guy knows what he's talking about. Which makes 3D printing a great tool for the prop maker to have in his belt. When people think that the 3D printer is going to replace the prop maker, maybe it will one day, but think about this. If you can just have a 3D printer poop out a prop, what's to say it can't poop out anything, including, you know, common electronics and furniture and whatever else you need in your house. And when that happens, I think that a lot more people than just prop makers will have a lot more to worry about. What's interesting is that hasn't quite happened yet. The 3D printer in every home, printing common stuff that you'd normally run to the store and grab, like things that need to be replaced or fixed. That's starting to happen here and there, but I only really see enthusiasts or people who know how to like make their own stuff or 3D model their own parts. My buddy Joel needed to fix part of his refrigerator, so he 3D modeled that part, printed it, and he was good to go. Instead of spending 20 bucks on a website for a replacement part. So that is starting to happen a tiny bit, but the future where we all have replicators in our house and we can just cram stuff out of it, that's not here yet. But what has happened is almost every prop maker I know has a 3D printer in their shop now, which is a complete flop from 7 years ago. Or flip. Do you have an opinion about 3D printers? Have you used one? Let me know. Tell me in the comments or tweet me at Chinbeard or let me know on Facebook. That's facebook.com/punishedprops. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye, girl. That's it. Yeah, what a change it has been, that flip, where at the time I didn't have a 3D printer, and I don't know if any of my prop maker friends had 3D printers. And now, 7 years later, it's the opposite. I can't name a prop maker friend who doesn't own at least one 3D printer, and most of them have many. I have at least 6. I don't even know. The other amazing side effect is that I think, anyway, I have no way to prove this, but I think the availability of 3D printing has actually increased how many people got into prop making because the barrier to entry came down so far. And I'd like to think that a lot of the 3D printing projects and videos that we did probably had something to do with that. I'm pretty proud of it. Alright, anyway, that was a really fun way to make a 4.5-minute video last 15 minutes. I hope you enjoyed that. And I'll tell you what, too, if you haven't made the jump to 3D printing yet and you're looking for a nudge, just let me know in the comments. Or if you don't know what printer to get, I'm sure I can help you or someone else in the comments can help you pick one out and jump on the crazy train because it's very fun. In fact, later today I have a 3D printing project I'm going to start noodling on. Won't tell you what it is yet, but it's going to be cool. Alright, gang, thanks so much, as always, for the support. You guys are fantastic. We appreciate it so much, helping us stay going through a global pandemic. So again, we appreciate it so much. I hope you have a good weekend. Stay safe, take care of one another, and we'll see you next week.